Okay, good evening, everybody. A couple of minutes past 7, so we will get started. Hello, my name is Mark Williams. I work here at Medical Projects, and we help students on their journey to medical school. Tonight, we're going to be looking at part of the Ucat. It's kind of the section that a lot of people are confused about. There's not necessarily like a right or wrong answer with quite a lot of these things, and I think that confuses a lot of students. So we thought we'd try and do something around the situational judgment test this evening. I think this is actually our last webinar of this kind of academic year as well. So we've done a lot of webinars this year. So if you have joined us before, I hope that you have enjoyed them. I'm sure we'll have some more up in September with the start of the new kind of academic year as well. If you have joined us in the past as well, you might recognize Minnie, who's going to be talking through the SJT with us tonight. Are you there, Minnie? Hello.
Hello. Struggling to unmute there. I'm good, thank you.
You enjoying the last bits of your summer holidays?
Yeah, trying to enjoy as much as possible, as much as the weather will let me. But yeah, kind of preparing to go back now and get some work done.
And then final year of medical school.
Yeah.
And then you'll actually be a doctor. You'll have like super responsibilities and all
terrifying.
That.
I'm excited. It was like, it's finally, around the corner. It's what we've been working for. But yeah, it's kind of a bit intimidating at the same time.
Cool. I think I've got a couple of like housekeeping things just to go through, and then I'll probably hand over to you and you can talk through some of the SJT stuff, and I'll be helping out with the polls and things as well. Yeah, so this webinar will finish before 8 o'clock, probably just a little bit before. We will send a recording of the slides and a recording of this and the slides out within kind of 48 hours as well. We will have a Q&A section at the end. We always like our webinars to be super interactive, and we want to try and answer as many of your questions as we can. So we'll use the Q&A system. If you've not used the Q&A system, it's kind of down on the bottom of the screen, and you can type your questions in there. And if anybody else has asked a question that you also want answering, then you can just hit the thumbs up button, and it kind of votes and brings the most popular questions to the top, so we can try and answer the most popular questions this evening. And we'll be using the polls as well. I'm sure a lot of you have used the polls, but it'll pop up on your screen and you just have to vote. It's all anonymous as well. It's just so we can get an idea of kind of how you're scoring, and you can kind of challenge yourself with some of the questions tonight as well. Cool. I don't think I've got any other like kind of housekeeping things to do, have I?
I don't think so.
Is it like straight over to you at that point?
All good.
Yeah.
Cool,
okay, cool. Yeah, so SJT, the newest kind of section, I guess, but also could be quite confusing because the answers are like they're objective, aren't they? They're not they're subjective, sorry, rather than objective. So I think it's quite confusing sometimes, isn't it?
It is a really tricky section, and then a lot of the times you could argue for multiple answers, but I think that's the hard bit. The tricky bit is learning that there is one that they are looking for that you can, the more practice you do, pick out. So hopefully by the end of tonight you'll have a bit more of a guide of how to pick out those answers and sort of how to practice and stuff. So yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, just let me know if you want me to kind of throw any polls up or anything throughout the talk.
Sounds good, thank you. Let's go for it. So, quick introduction to situational judgment test. So, measure your capacity to understand real-world situations, and you guys can read the rest, so read it out for you. But yeah, so this is a weird section that it's very much based on, as it says, real-life situations, stuff that you would come across, in your working life, and test how you deal with them. So it's one of those weird sections where I think people go in thinking this is the least scary of them all. It's not like abstract reasoning where you've got all weird shapes and you sort of have to learn how to answer the questions. But it is one that it is really tricky. And as I was saying before, there's a lot of, times where you'll be stuck between 3 answers that could all be right. So I think it is definitely one you still need to practice, even though it doesn't look as scary as some of the other sections. And it is a pretty important section as well. So a lot of the medical schools will basically completely, cut you off if you're below a band 2, and some of them even want you to have a band 1 and won't take you if you have band 2 or below. So it's important to think, this is a really important section, you want to do well on it. So I think give it as much attention as the other sections as well. So just an overview of what the section entails. So you get 69 questions and you've got 26 minutes to answer them. So it's not a lot of time for each question. So part one is rate the importance. So it will give you, a statement, and how important is that? Is it very important? Is it not very important? And then part two is rate the appropriateness. Is it, the ideal outcome, or is it something that's not appropriate to do at all? So, and then, like I said, you get put in a band from 1 to 4. Obviously you're aiming for band 1, but band 2 as well is a really, really good result. And basically you should be aiming for at least band 2. And there are a few medical schools that will accept, below that, but there's a few. So yeah, really want to be aiming for that band 2. So before we get going with the sort of questions and explanations, just some top tips to sort of get you going. So read the GMC Good Medical Practice Guide. This is your holy book for situational judgment tests. So this is basically your guide of how to be a good doctor. And this is basically what a lot of the questions are based around. So things like, confidentiality and, how you should approach, speaking to colleagues, things like that. So have a really good read of that and be aware of the important points it makes, because that definitely will guide you towards, the right answer, which is what you want. So, and like I was saying before, there's not a lot of time for each question. So I'd say it's very good, getting good at the questions, but you need to get good and fast at doing the questions. So make sure you're mixing in some timed practice as well as just practicing the questions. So, put a clock on, give yourself however many seconds to each question. You don't have to do a full run through every time. Just get good at reading fast and, thinking fast as well. Be aware of sort of roles within the NHS as well. So you're not always going to be you in the scenario. They might say you're the FY1, so that's the first year junior doctor on the ward, and you have to put yourself in their shoes. Well, what would they do in the situation? And they might, name a consultant or your registrar and nurse. So know how these roles fit together in, the ward scenario, and who's in charge of who and who's, a leader in that situation. Most important thing to be aware as well, patient comes first, patient is the priority. So if it's something like there was one where you're running late, like, well, there's a slip on, there's a puddle on the floor, what are you going to do? You don't prioritize yourself in that situation. This is a safety hazard for the patient, things like that. So make sure that their safety, their health, their treatment is the priority. Don't rely on personal views and assumptions. So I think it's really easy to just say what I'd do in this situation, what I personally would do, but I think you should say objectively, what should you do? You might be really shy, you might not want confrontation, but sometimes that might be the right answer. You have to go and speak to someone, even though you may not personally want to do that in real life. So just think what objectively is the thing that you should do. And then to finish off with, just practice little and often. So as I said before, you don't need to sit down for an hour and do a full set of questions. Just do a few questions, time them, read the explanations as well. At the end, it's easy to just say, oh, I did really well, I got 80% on those questions. Like, read the explanations and read why the answer was this. Even if you got the right answer, it's kind of getting used to how the questions are worded and what they're looking for in the answer. So yeah, we'll get cracking with some example questions and then go through some of the answers as well. So hopefully that will help sort of guide what they're looking for in the questions. So I won't read all that out to you. We'll should we set a poll for 60 seconds? Is that okay, Mark?
Yeah, 1 second. I'll just give everybody like 10-15 seconds to read that.
Yeah.
and then I'll put the poll up.
Cool, and I can set a timer. Where is my timer actually? Or should we'll do 40 seconds, seeing as this is one of those where you kind of push for time, so we'll kind of a bit extra time, but
I'll put it up now.
Okay.
It's got a timer on this poll as well, actually, so I can tell you when it's at 40 seconds and I can stop it.
Okay, cool.
So 10 seconds left. If you haven't voted already, just vote quickly. 5, 2, 1, and stop. Right, okay, I'll share the results. So a little bit of a mix, but strong favourite, I'd say there.
Yeah, definitely. So most people going for A. So A, yeah, is the right answer. Very important. I'd say, yeah, it's just, if it's a rule that you have to follow for a reason. So I think identification is something that's really important and does come up. So just making sure people know what you are, so you're not, going to get confused with actually being a doctor. So yeah, very, very important. And yeah, you need to follow, standardized approach. And so this is the same thing with like wearing sort of bare below the elbow. Like there's a reason you need to do that, and it's something that comes up as well on the SJT is sort of appropriate wear. And do you tell a colleague that they're wearing bracelets and stuff? So yeah, identification, yeah, very important. Don't want to look like you're sort of above your station when you're not. They might tell you something that's confidential to that sort of doctor-patient relationship that you aren't quite, involved in. So yeah, very important. But yeah, good job, guys, most of you getting that one right. I think it was like 72%. So it's a good start. So same scenario again. So how important is it that the patient with whom you've been interacting are made aware she's not yet qualified?
We'll give this maybe like 30 seconds because
Yeah.
they've already read the kind of the situation.
Yeah.
Okay, that's 30 seconds. I'll end and I'll share the results.
Ooh. Oh, that's almost the same again. So, yeah, answers A again. So kind of a bit of overlap with the question before, and in my explanation, I probably gave it away a little bit. But yeah, I think when you start medical school as well, like it's always so important to introduce yourself and say, I am the medical student, I'm not the doctor. And so the patient knows exactly who you are at all times. And so, yeah, very important. You don't want to be sneaking around pretending you're a doctor while you're a student, because that's definitely not good. But yeah, really good job, guys. Most of you getting that one right. So yeah. So different scenario here. So if we do 40 seconds again.
Yeah, I'll give them, say, 30 seconds to read it now, and then I'll give it 30 seconds to answer it as well. Okay, the poll's up, and I'll give everybody 30 seconds to vote on that. Ten seconds left. Okay, sharing the results.
Cool. So about 70% again going for A, which is the correct answer. So I think this is one where it's really good to sort of be aware of medical ethics as well. So maybe have a read up on that if you guys haven't already done that for, you know, other things. So respect for autonomy and beneficence, non-maleficence, all those. You don't need to know all about them, but have an awareness. But yeah, it's always really important for patients to be involved in their treatment plans, and this doesn't mean that they get to decide. The patients actually can't demand treatment. They can refuse treatment, but they can't demand, especially like in this scenario, like a palliative patient can't demand that you know, maybe they're given CPR. The medical team does have a right to say, no, this isn't appropriate, we're not going to do that. But yeah, if you look at the question without all that information, it's just saying, do they have a right to be involved in the decisions? And yes, that is true. They have a right to be involved and, you know, discussing every step of their treatment plan. So yeah, very important. And yeah, good job getting that. Most of you getting that one right again. So another one here, how important is it to maintain a positive outlook for the patient?
So it's the same case, so I'll just relaunch the poll and give everybody 30 seconds. Bit more of a split here.
Yeah, I think this one's quite a tricky one.
Okay, last seconds. And share.
So yeah, about 50% going for B, 40% for A. So yeah, it's quite close, but yeah, the right answer is B there. So positive attitude is, you know, great, really, you know, nice for the patient, but you know, it's not about giving false hope as well. So I think although it's great and really important to do that for the patient, and you know, you say, you know, this treatment isn't going to cure you, but we're going to do our best, you know, to make you comfortable, give you the best treatment possible. Not treatment, sorry, sort of make you as comfortable as possible. But I think be aware that you have to be realistic as well. And yeah, as I said, don't promise something that's not going to happen. So while it is nice, you know, giving a positive outlook and important, it shouldn't come above, you know, being realistic and basically say to this patient, we actually can't give you any treatment that's going to cure you, but you know, this is what we're going to do. So yeah, so good job everyone. That is a tough one actually.
I think that's one of those situations where obviously 40% voted for very important.
Yeah.
So, you know, a lot of people could have been getting kind of half mark, like you'd still get a mark for that, but you wouldn't get the full marks for it. And that's one of those times where it's, you can argue it that it is very important, but you're only going to get full marks if you get important. And it's that justification of saying it is important, but it's not very important because you have to maintain that, you know, not give false hope. And sometimes that can be really annoying when you start practicing these questions. It's like, but I think it's very important. And it's like, well, it's not necessarily about your opinion. It's about how the world of doctors or whoever make decisions, and you have to go with what they want and not what you necessarily think. And I think that's really difficult to understand sometimes with the SJT.
Yeah, definitely. But I think that's the thing about doing lots of questions there. You start to pick up on these things a bit more, and see what they're looking for. So that's why I say just practice loads of questions, do it little and often, because you'll start to get to grips with, okay, they're looking for this on this question, and there's similar questions that come up, and they said this last time, so I'll say this. But I think as long as you're in the right, you know, you're picking between those two, then you're gonna get marks. So final scenario. So how long? 45, 50.
We'll give maybe up to 40 seconds on this, just because it's quite a short bit to read. Get more of a split with these types of questions. It's not as clear cut.
Yeah, definitely get harder.
Okay, sharing the results.
Yeah, it's quite a split, isn't there? So I'll reveal the answer. So the answer is D, very inappropriate thing to do. So I thought this was quite a tricky one, to be fair, because I know that what happens in real life is not always what matches up with the SJT. So as we said earlier on, like, patient's best interest comes first, and this child is clearly very upset, does not want to be there. And so I think that it's going to absolutely traumatize this child if you carry on, and you know, it might make it more difficult if you have further consultations. They might, you know, never want to come and see a doctor again. So you have to be really careful with kids, make them as comfortable as possible, keep them calm. So I think just if you carry on, it's going to make it just a horrific experience for this child. So I think that's why it's a very inappropriate thing to do, is that you basically, and it didn't necessarily mean that you can't carry on, but after you've, you know, maybe tried to calm them down or give them 10 minutes, it's that you have to really look at a statement, carry on the checkup as normal. So I think it is a difficult question, I think, but again,
I think that as normal is the thing that takes it from being kind of inappropriate but not awful to very inappropriate.
Exactly.
I mean, if you had a screaming child in front of you, you wouldn't just carry on as normal. You'd at least try and comfort the child, or you'd you know, speak to the parents and then carry on. So it's that checkup as normal that takes it from being C to D. It's just that they're fans of making the wording very specific, so keep an eye on those wordings.
I think it's the fact that it's a routine checkup as well within the stem of the question. Like, I think potentially could be very different if the child was acutely ill and you had to quickly, you know, make a diagnosis. The fact that it's like just a routine checkup, there's no looming emergency, they can come back at, you know, if they want to, or you can calm them down for a bit. You can do something basically that isn't just carrying on and, you know, pushing through and basically traumatizing the child. So yeah, very inappropriate thing to do. That is the right answer. So another one with the same scenario. So do you suggest that the mother books another appointment at a later date?
I'll just give 30 seconds for this again. I think that's plenty of time. There's so many ways you can argue these questions, and that can be a frustrating thing about the SJT.
Exactly, and it never ends as well. Like, I've got
you
one
have to
coming
do
up
it
for finals for my job application, so something you always have to be aware of. So yeah, proper split there. Great. So the answer is B. So that so you need to do something, obviously, because, you know, this child is not having it. And as we said before, it's not appropriate to just carry on. But I think this is when the differentiation between like, this is the optimal ideal outcome and you can do this is good, but it's not the absolute best option. That's when that comes into play. So, you know, you can say, you know, get another appointment. It's gonna, you know, give time for the boy to calm down and stuff like that. But then also you got to think the downsides of that. The boy is, you know, hasn't had his checkup. That day you're going to use up another appointment block that could be used for another patient. The boy, you know, it might have a, you know, that lead up of a couple of weeks of anxiety of going back to the doctors. And so probably the ideal would be just to take, you know, a few minutes out and calm the boy down and, you know, finish the checkup there and then. But, you know, that's not what it says. It's booking an appointment. So both of those are, you know, fine to do, but I think the booking another appointment later date is not the optimal best outcome. So that's why it's appropriate but not ideal. But it is a really tricky one. I think, you know, yeah, you can argue either way, but I think that's the thing about just, you've got to practice and use all the resources you can as well, because some of them, they might word it stuff a bit differently to the official Ucat resources. So, you know, just do medical projects. We've got articles and courses and stuff, so I'm sure Mark will mention that. But, you know, get some books out of the library and use loads of websites and just keep practicing, because yeah, they are really, really tricky.
Yeah, it becomes pattern recognition to an extent.
Exactly,
but I think it's just important to mention again that, you know, as long as you're in, there's essentially marks for 2 answers with the SJT. So it's not a case of if you put B, you'd get 1 mark, and then you get no marks if you put anything else.
Mm-hmm.
You would get essentially like 2 marks for B, and you'd get maybe 1 mark for A. So as long as you're in the right half and you're not doing things that, you know, endanger patients,
Mm-hmm.
or do things that are classed as wrong or dangerous, you still get marks, but it's not as many marks as if you get the answer they're definitely looking for. So you can still do relatively well on the SJT even by not getting a single answer 100% correct, because you can get basically half marks by doing that. They're basically looking to rule out the people that make semi-dangerous decisions. So if you start putting, say in this case, C and D, and you do that on lots of questions where it's considered to be dangerous, then you end up in band 3 or band 4, whereas band 1 and band 2, most students fit into those bands because normally you're in kind of the right half. So yeah, the SJT scoring it's slightly confusing, but essentially the way I like to think it is that you get 2 marks for a right answer and 1 mark for a half right answer, and then no marks for anything else. So you can do quite well without, as long as you're in the right half and as long as you're keeping safe and doing the right thing.
Yeah, definitely. And remember as well, like band 2 is great. I think most people, not most people, but a high percentage of people get band 2 than band 1. So, you know, don't be disheartened if, you know, you're not getting the best scores ever. There's still opportunity for you to get in. So just do as well as you can, but, you know, don't be completely, you know, thrown if you get a band 2. It's still a really good score.
Yeah, and again, mentioning the scoring system. So yes, the rest of the Ucat gives you a score, you know, out of however many thousand, or break it down, and you might get, say, an average of, say, 650 for your 4 sections. But the SJT is marked completely separately. And so, you know, even if you get a band 1 or band 2, then that's absolutely fine. And then the rest can, you know, you can focus the rest of your time on the other 4 sections as well.
Yeah, exactly. Just have a double check with the medical schools that you're keen to apply for and see, okay, do they accept, you know, the band that I've got? I mean, some do accept, you know, band 3 as well. So just have a double check before you apply, because just, you don't want to waste an application if, you know, you don't meet the requirements.
Cool. Have we got any more questions to go through, or if we
That
want to
is
open it up
it,
for
I think.
Q&A?
Yeah, we'll go for Q&A.
Okay, cool. I'll just open the Q&A up here. So if anybody's got any questions, we'll try and keep it around the Ucat and ideally the SJT if we can. But I'll just give it a second for a few questions to come in. So the first question is, how are the bands determined? Is it based on year performance, or are there certain mark boundaries, as in like 60% is band 2 or something like that?
Ooh, I don't actually know, but it does vary. The percentage of people that get band 1, 2 varies quite a lot each year. So I don't think it's a case of they give a certain percentage of people, band whatever. But I suppose if everyone does it individually, then it must be based on score, right? Because not everyone will have done it yet, if you know what I mean, Mark.
Yeah, I'll have to go and have a look. The about 75% of people end up in band 1 and band 2.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Not everyone will have done the test by, the time that they do, because you get the results immediately. So it must be predetermined before you sit the test.
And because there's essentially marks for a right answer and a half right answer, I think there's more likely to be a definitive, like, this is your band 2 score. I'll try and have a quick look about exactly how it's marked, but the Ucat scoring is like one of the world's best kept secrets. They just don't tell anybody. I mean, you can look at all the graphs and try and work out how they do it based on performance and things, but it's not something that's necessarily openly shared. How can you distinguish easily between whether something is very important or just important, or of minor importance or not important? So yeah, it's how are you going to determine whether it's kind of on the brink? Is it very important, or just a little bit important, or the opposite end of the scale?
I think it's a case of like, well, first of all, is it, to do with the patient, is it patient comes first, and like, is it something that's going to affect the safety or how well the patient's treated? Because if it is something like that, then that is very important. And yeah, anything that endangers a patient or something like that, or endangers a member of staff, I think is usually going to be very important. But again, it's because it's so subjective. A lot of the time it's hard to give you a pattern of, okay, this is how you tell easily. But if it's something that maybe there's somewhere it's like, this consultant is marking your paper and you're 5 minutes late, but there's a spillage over there, like, and the way you approach that, do you go straight to the ward and forget about it because you don't want to be late? Like, that's not very important, because it's it's just affecting you. You're leaving something that's dangerous for a patient. So yeah, I think it's just a case of practice. I can't give you a definite okay, this is how you spot it, but patient is number 1.
Yeah, patient safety is always going to be number 1. So if there's anything like that, then you normally get more extremes. But I guess Leo's question here is, how can you easily distinguish between whether something's a specific answer? Well, there isn't an easy way to deal with the SJT. And I know that's really difficult to kind of understand, because you want a specific answer, but you can't have a specific answer in a subjective test. So that's why the section's really difficult to kind of learn. But practice and
it's not easy.
Practice and recognizing what they're looking for in the question, and you'll start to recognize that has to be very important, because I've seen it in 3 other cases before, or that's of minor importance because I know this should happen because I've seen it in the practice questions I've done. So Leo, I guess the only way you're going to know is by doing a lot of practice questions and reading the explanations. A lot more practice. Sorry. In any situation, should confrontation / dealing with it on your own always be more appropriate than reporting the problem, even if the person is wrong, is in higher authority? Does that make sense?
Really good. I think it's not necessarily, I think that they want you to deal with it in a sensible way. So don't go out your way and, report someone. Like, I think I read one before that your colleague was breaking, or your registrar was breaking PPE rules and wearing, bracelet and sleeves below the elbows. And one of the options was you go straight to infection control. Like, that's not appropriate. I think a lot of the time they want you to have a discussion with that colleague and go straight to them and say, this isn't appropriate, can you, but as long as but the thing is as well, sometimes they word it a bit weird where it's like, confront them, like, you don't want anything like that. It's, have a discussion, and if not, normally the next best thing is to speak to maybe your senior, maybe it's speak to your registrar, but don't go and report them to the GMC or things like that immediately, because it's not the appropriate thing to do usually.
Yeah, quite often in the SJT, what they do is they give you a situation like that. So somebody's not doing something correctly with their sleeves, or they're wearing nail varnish or something like that. So it seems like a relatively minor infringement. And then they'll word the question to be something like, confront your colleague, or raise it in, the staff room or something like that. And it automatically takes a normal situation and then makes it like not appropriate, because it's the way that you're dealing with it. Whereas they'll give you the same situation and they'll say, privately have a word, or privately have a discussion with your colleague about this and see if there's a resolution to it. And that becomes very appropriate. So you've gone from, it's the same situation, but the way they word it depends on what your answer is. So just be careful on, as soon as you see one of those kind of confrontation situations, double read the actual wording of their proposed solution, because that will determine where your answer goes quite often. Cool. Daisy's asked, what is the ideal average score in the Ucat? Well, the average Ucat's about, is it 645 for the last kind of couple of years? It's been floating around there. Yeah. So if you want an average Ucat score, somewhere around 645, 650. Anything above 675 is good. Anything above 700, you're smashing it. Yeah, they're the numbers. They've been kind of like that for the last 4 or 5 years, so it'll be pretty similar, I think. I've missed a few of the webinars. Are they emailed to us, or can I access them? Yeah, all our webinars, if you actually go to our YouTube channel, if you just search medical projects in YouTube, every webinar I've ever done is there. And it's also on the website under past webinars as well in the menu. Okay, dealt with that one. What is a score that would guarantee a place? No such thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's so many components to the application where like no one strong part is going to guarantee you a place. So I think you need to do as well as you can Ucat, but also don't neglect the personal statement, and you also need to get through the interview. So just do as well as you can on all of them, and don't just concentrate on one. You need to make sure that you're a well-rounded applicant.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking for.
Don't spend your life literally just trying to like maximize your Ucat score, because you might get 850 and still not get a place because you've neglected your personal statement, you've not got enough work experience, you've not practiced for the interviews. So yeah, there's no perfect Ucat score that they automatically open the door and say, yeah, come on in, you've got a great Ucat score. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately.
Yeah. Like if you do really well, maybe apply for schools that prioritize the Ucat and say, maybe if you got this score, then you're guaranteed an interview. But again, you still got to get through the interview. So
yeah, we've got an article on where to apply. If you look at, again, on our website, there's a section that says articles, and it's where to apply with a high Ucat score. So have a look at that article if you're interested in if you know you're going to do really well or you think you're going to do really well, maybe apply to some of those. Do you get marks for choosing a similar option? I know we've mentioned that a couple of times, haven't we?
Yeah, so yeah, you do, but yeah, so as long as you're on the right side of it, then you'll get something. But yeah, just don't do a silly answer because you won't get anything for that. So just make sure that you're at least close enough a lot of the time, and then you'll be fine. Because that's the thing, like, it's so hard to differentiate between, you know, very appropriate and appropriate not ideal. But yeah, as long as you're, you know, within that, or within the not appropriate or not appropriate but can do, then I
think this is quite a good question because people have different ways of taking exams and doing exams. It says, would you recommend looking over your answers or sticking with your initial gut feeling and not overthinking it? Which kind of side did you fall on when you do exams? Are you like a bang, that's my answer, move on, or do you sit and think?
Yeah, I'm usually bang, put it in, and then because I think you have so little time to think in a way, and usually when you go with your gut's usually at least a little bit right. So I'm one of those where I'll see it and I'll just bob it down because you can always flag it and go back to it. I just think you need to get the questions done because, you know, you don't want to be in danger of, you know, not answering all of them because that's almost worse than, you know, racing through the whole thing because at least you've got a chance then. So I'd say it depends how well you're doing with the timing when you're practicing. Like if you feel like you've got enough time to sit and think, then all means. But I think for me, I was very much rushing. So I was like, okay, bam, 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 get the answers in.
Yeah, definitely. I think anything to do with the Ucat, your preparation is done in the weeks and months beforehand. When you're doing it, it's literally just a rapid fire, bang, bang, bang. Like just move through them. And like you said, don't miss any questions because that's criminal with the Ucat. If you've done enough practice, your gut feeling should be correct most of the time. So just go for it.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you have any tips for what we could do the day before or a couple of days before the exam?
Ooh. So I think, what did I don't think I did anything the day before. I think I would say have a little break, maybe just make sure you're going in fresh if that's something that you like doing. Because for me, I just want to forget about it, go in, you know, there's not much more you can do, you know, the day before in terms of getting a better score. But in terms of like that week, I did save myself a couple of practice papers to do, just to have a full run through, just to say, okay, I'm going to sit down for an hour or however long the total exam is and see how it is just doing a whole paper, sat down using the calculator, and I just do that. And then if there's anything that you were like, oh my god, I don't know what I'm doing in this section, then you can pick up on it then, and at least you've got, you know, a day or so to go over that. But I wouldn't stress yourself out a few days before because
don't be cramming.
you can do.
Yeah, don't be cramming like the day before because it's just too much pressure on yourself and you're not going to sleep well. So yeah, try and use that day as either like a complete break or a super relaxed, I'm just doing these questions because I can and I'm doing it at a nice relaxed pace with no pressure. Just avoid any pressure that day before, I'd say.
And treat yourself, have a nice dinner and have a good sleep and just do what you want, relax.
So this is a question about on Medify, you get a partially correct. Yes, that's the same situation where we're talking about you're on the right side of the line, so you get kind of a partial mark. So yes, that's what we were talking about before. Can you have more than one very appropriate for a single scenario?
Yeah, you can do. So like we had, I think the first one, both of them were at least, well, they were very important. And yeah, there was, very appropriate. Is it very appropriate specifically? I don't know about that one. I think.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can.
Can you?
They can just
I know
give you
you
a
can
different,
definitely have very
question.
appropriate. Yeah.
How do you keep your answers mostly objective? Well, it's completely subjective in a way.
Yeah,
This is not an objective test.
I think just don't try and take your personality into account, because I think it's easy to be like, okay, what would I do in this situation? And like, for me, I'm not one of those people that would go up to someone and say, oh, you're doing this wrong. But sometimes, like, often that is the right thing to do. So you should do it. So don't think, okay, or I'll just go and report them because that's what I do. Like, think, okay, what is the best action to do that? And what's come up before? Okay, I have to go and speak to this person directly and do that. So I don't know if that makes sense, but don't take what you would do, just what you should do.
I'll just try and find a few questions from like further down, just so everybody's got a chance to answer a question. I might take like 2 more questions, and then I think we'll probably wrap it up for the evening. Do universities care about individual scores for each section or just the average overall?
I don't think
They just see the overall score.
Yeah, I think so. So I think you're fine. So, you know, if you've got a weak section, then you're fine as long as the other ones sort of push it up. But yeah, it's too much.
Cool. One more. Can you choose more than one answer? No. I'll find another one. What's the best score to get? Band 1 in the SJT anyway. Would you say that universities have a very strict Ucat cutoffs, or is there a little bit of leeway in your score being accepted?
I think if the score is stated on the website, they're probably going to be very strict with it, because I think there's so many applicants that they need just to get, you know, have a cut off and get rid of hundreds of students immediately, because there's too many people and too many personal statements to read through. So yeah, I wouldn't, if you are below the cutoff, I wouldn't take your chances, even if you are close.
No, and especially not this year. The amount of students that are applying this year. If you don't meet the Ucat scores, just don't apply there. Like, simple. Otherwise, you're wasting a choice. Yeah. Cool. Well, hopefully not everyone will not have that problem, because they've watched all our webinars and they'll all absolutely smash the Ucat. I'm sure a lot of you probably have the Ucat coming up relatively soon, given we're into August now, so there's not long left to take it. So, and this is our last webinar as well. So we wish everybody like the absolute best of luck with the Ucat. We hope that you've enjoyed the webinars, or if you want to go back and watch any of the other webinars that we've done on various Ucat sections, it's all on our YouTube channel if you want to go back and just do a bit of extra revision on specific sections. But yeah, hope it goes really well. And yeah, fingers crossed for the application process for you guys. And we'll probably see you at some point next year, although you'll need us for very different things. It'll all be about interviews and personal statements, because the Ucat will be done and you would have all got amazing scores. So yeah, I really appreciate you joining us again, Minnie. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. And yeah, good luck everyone. Smash the Ucat and yeah, enjoy the application process. It's a fun ride.
Cool. Yeah, we'll see you again, Minnie. We'll probably be back on some kind of webinars in September onwards. You'll be a final year student then, on your way to being a doctor, and yeah, hopefully we'll get you back for some more. So appreciate it.
See you later.
All right, thanks. Bye.